I think behind the rhetoric is a strong determination on the part of the American people and even the Republicans who are mouthing the words that we have to keep supporting Ukraine. If something terrible was to happen and we stopped supporting Ukraine and Ukraine started to lose or something along those lines, I mean, the Republicans would be taking the brunt, if not all the criticism, but some of the criticism. So that previous 113 billion would have been essentially wasted.
Well, Joe Biden, the US president, reiterated his own support for Ukraine and the urgency of getting that military support through to Ukraine.
We'll continue to supply Ukraine with critical weapons and equipment as long as we can, including $200 million I just approved today in a critical needed equipment, additional air defense interceptors, artillery, and ammunition. But without supplemental funding, we're rapidly coming to an end of our ability to help Ukraine respond to the urgent operational demands that it has. Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong.
Well, that was President Joe Biden speaking alongside President Zelensky within the last hour. Let's talk to Colonel Brendan Kearney, who's a military affairs analyst and a former chief of staff for the US Marine Corps forces in Europe. Good evening to you, Colonel Kearney.
Hello, Carol. Good evening to you.
Really good to have you with us. So we heard some of that joint news conference, President Biden pledging US support. But is there any sense that President Zelensky has actually managed to win over those senators who've been blocking the next tranche of military support?
Oh, I think he has. I think he had even before he got to Washington, D.C., Carol. Unfortunately, what we're witnessing is the great game of politics being played in Washington, D.C., like it gets played in many capitals of the free world. We've got the Republicans have an opportunity to go ahead and advance their tremendous concerns, and quite frankly, a lot of Democrats share those concerns with the just unsatisfactory mishandling of the southern border issues by the Biden administration. So they're gonna use that as political leverage. But I just cannot see the United States backing away from support to Ukraine. I find it inconceivable. And even some of the senators and congressmen that are hinting at it, they're hinting at it for political reasons.
It's interesting. President Zelensky was asked whether he'd heard what he wanted to hear on this trip. And he said, I'm not able to tell you in public the details of the 2024 operations. I got the signal they were more positive. So it sounds as though that there's still no real agreement there, is there, on this huge package of military aid? And to be honest, I mean, from the Ukrainians' point of view, time is running out for them to receive these weapons and the military equipment.
Well, I agree, and then I respectfully disagree with you here on just a couple aspects of it. Any of the monies that we're talking about right now, this aid, really is not going to translate into tangible things arriving in Ukraine for months from now. There's things that are being delivered to Ukraine now that were promised at the beginning of this past summer. If you think of the big falderall over the Abrams tanks, and the cost associated with those has been included in this 113 billion that's already been delivered. The tanks just recently arrived. The same with the F-16s. Hey, we're sending over. These are worth so many billions of dollars. But by the way, the Ukrainian pilots haven't been trained on them yet, so they're not going to be flying them anytime soon. So a lot of this, we have a great term in the Marine Corps. We call it smoke and mirrors. Where you see the smoke signal, but that's about it. It's smoke. Nothing tangible is coming from it. And I think that's going to be the same thing with this funding. I think Zelensky's been assured it's going to eventually come. And that will carry him through. But these are items that we're probably going to see in the new year. Nowhere, none of it will arrive anytime within the next couple weeks.
But it is then down to the Biden administration to make those changes in terms of US border security as part of some kind of political deal to get this funding to Ukraine, then, isn't it?
It is going to be, and I think there's going to be a compromise, an accommodation on both sides. I think the broad support for Ukraine will be tangible. There will be a commitment on the part of the United States Congress to support that 61 billion, either in one lump sum, or I think most likely it's going to be spread out over a series of promises to allow the Congress to have some control over any commitments that President Biden makes regarding the southern border. He's going to have to do something. That it is really truly a mess down there. And again, I think the majority of Congress from both parties are just, and the vast majority of the American people are utterly fed up with the chaos that's reigning down there and within our cities because of it.
Do you get the sense, though, that particularly within the Republican Party, they just don't want to carry on spending so much money and sending so much hardware to Ukraine? There were a lot of questions at that news conference today about whether Zelensky should be trying to seek peace with Russia. President Zelensky, was very clear that Ukraine would not be giving up any territory, which would presumably be a price for any kind of deal with Russia. But is there a sense in which the Republicans, and of course we're coming up to the election next year, are really feeling that the time has come not to spend so much money on this war the other side of the world?
I think the Republicans, the rhetoric is there, and you're recounting it very, very accurately. However, I think behind the rhetoric is a strong determination on the part of the American people, and even the Republicans who are mouthing the words that we have to keep supporting Ukraine. If something terrible was to happen and we stopped supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine started to lose, or something along those lines, I mean, the Republicans would be taking the brunt, if not all the criticism, but some of the criticism. So that previous 113 billion would have been essentially wasted. So what I understand what the Republicans are doing. I respect what they do because I respect how politics, as ugly as it is, how it works. But I really do think that they're not going to let Ukraine lose. I just can't see that happen.
Of course, the other factor in all of this is the Israel Gaza war. We've now got a vote tonight in the UN General Assembly voting in favor of a non binding resolution demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Colonel Kearney, just finally, I mean, do you think that this vote is going to have any real impact on the war there?
No, it's going to have no impact whatsoever. Uh, you know, uh, uh, Particularly here, I'll take you right back to the American political scene for a second. There's strong support for Israel here in the United States, despite the fact there has been some very large pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas demonstrations. Great support for in the Congress of the United States for Israel. Um, the United Nations is held in contempt by the American people. We have been, in the American people's eyes, the United Nations has burned us more times than we can even remember. So within the United States, the UN vote is meaningless. And quite honestly, it lacks teeth. So it's an unenforceable effort on the part of the UN, to the benefit of the Palestinian, and you have to hand it to the Palestinians. Their rhetoric, their message has been resonating, and the Israelis have not done as good a job. But all in all, it'll make no difference tonight or tomorrow or a week from now about this strong resolution. It makes people feel good, but it'll have no practical impact on what Israel the IDF is doing in Gaza right now.
Colonel Brendan Kearney, military affairs analyst, former chief of staff for the US Marine Corps forces in Europe. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Carol. Talk soon.
Thank you.